Ananta Koti Vaishnava Praise of our Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Prabhu Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrinda Ki Shri Mayapura Ki Shri Jagannath Puri Ki Ranga Devi Ki Yamuna Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Devi Ki Prihapriyanga Ki Harihan Sankirtan Ki PVT Book Distribution Ki Gora Premanande all glories to the Assembled Glory all glories to the Assembled Glory all glories to the Assembled Glory all glories to Sri Guru and Nanda and all glories to Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai.
The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow down to the lotus feet of the great one reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by words emanating from those lotus feet. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection and fulfills all desires. In order to find out in eyes and grow to the knowledge, he is my Lord by birth after birth, but being ecstatic never hates by deity princess destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, a friend of the poor and wanted master of devotees. O Master, be merciful to us. Give us the shade of the lotus feet. The flame is spread throughout the three worlds. We take shelter of the lotus feet. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Devi Lord Shri release naked Swarupa of mercy, so that Swati Shakti may flourish in the numbers of my devotees, in the blessed Shri Devi, and especially in honor of the Guru and my devotees. Shri Shri
Cross is in Hitler. The cross is in Hitler.
Change.
Cross is in Hitler.
No, it's prominence on this. So it's not me.
Yeah. Yeah. Does Peter know the class is in here? Does Peter know the class? We're missing it.
Class is in here?
Yes.
Yes. We need to speak?
Yes. She's doing it on China Tangata Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Bhava Deva Dadi Jasanana Tada Vaja Jana Ranjana Jana Tirana Chari Jaya Radha Mata Prakanja Bihari Gopi Jana Vana Giri Varadari Jasananam Tada Vaja Jana Ranjana Jana Tira Vadachari Jaya Jagannatha Prabhupada Bihari Gopi Jalavala Bhagiri Varadari Jasanana Jadana Jajana Jana Jaya Jagannatha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Kodanitai, Jaya Maya Kosachi, Kodanitai, Jaya Maya Kosachi. Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol. Prabhupada ki, Prabhupada Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Nitai Gora. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Lila Vrinda, Volume 5, Let There Be a Temple, Chapter 8. Srila Prabhupada's first two stops in Europe were Rome and Geneva. In both places, devotees had arranged many outside speaking engagements, as well as meetings with important guests in Prabhupada's room. The Rome temple was a small house at a busy intersection near Piazza Lodi. Traffic was relentless, its noise penetrating into Prabhupada's quarters within the temple building. I hope the noise of the traffic doesn't bother you too much, Prabhupada. Bother you too much. Dhananjaya, the temple president, apologized. No, Prabhupada replied. This sound is very pleasing. It means this is a very important part of Rome. This is a very good location. At the Villa Borghese, in a hotel hall built to seat 500 people, Prabhupada spoke before a crowd of more than 1,000. Prabhupada was pleased by the enthusiastic gathering of Italians who behaved as if coming to receive the blessings of the Pope. They were pious, but they had not been taught properly how to engage in the Lord's service. This, he said, was the one defect. Although the devotees had arranged a meeting between Prabhupada and the Pope was ill, so Prabhupada met with Cardinal Pignedoli, who was in charge of non-Christian liaisons. In flying to Geneva, Prabhupada and his secretaries viewed the snow-covered Alps. This is a very dangerous spot, Prabhupada remarked, as the plane flew above the Alpine peaks. Many planes have crashed here. In Geneva, the mayor offered Prabhupada an official reception. Everything went smoothly according to diplomatic protocol. Afterwards, the mayor asked frankly, if everyone became like you are saying, wouldn't the economy be threatened? Prabhupada said no, and he quoted the same verse he had given to press reporters in Hyderabad. Annat bhavanti bhutani. Grains are produced by rains, which are produced by sacrifice to Vishnu. Prabhupada proposed that if men cultivated their land and kept cows, they would have no economic problems. Krishna-conscious devotees could work in all ways of life within society. In fact, they could teach how to organize society according to God-conscious principles. While returning to the temple, Prabhupada asked, were my answers all right? One of the devotees replied that he thought the mayor considered the devotees beggars. Therefore, Prabhupada said, I told him about tilling the land. We are not beggars, but we are giving the highest knowledge. I gave him a copy of Bhagavad Gita, the highest knowledge. He could not give us anything, so who is the beggar? Prabhupada accepted an invitation in Geneva to speak at the World Health Organization of the United Nations. He also met at the temple with Indologist Jean Herbert and with several scientists and professors. Srila Prabhupada ki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, text 28 and 27, chapter entitled The Activities of Maharaj Priyavrata. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Would anyone like to try this verse? Or shall I just go through it myself?
Go straight through it. Got another one.
Yeah.
Maybe Raj can have a go at it. It's his last class, so maybe he can.
All right, there you go. Go with a bang. Tasmin.
No, first Mother just to say, then you repeat it.
Okay. Well, Prabhupada took great pains to write the Sanskrit, the transliteration, the word for word, and the translation. So to honor that would be his position. Just okay. Tasmin. Ha. Va. Vipashama. Shila. Paramashaya. Sakala. Jiva. Nikaya Vasasya. Bhagavato Vasudevasya. Vitanam Sharanam Bhutasya Srimad Charanavinda Vrinda Smarana Vigavinta Paramam Bhakti Yaganu Bhavina Paribhavitanta Hridaya Digate Bhagavati Salvesham Bhutanam Bhavana Paribhavitantar. Oh, that's not one. Okay, so Atma Bhute Pratyak Atmani Evatmanas Tadatmyam Abhisheshana Samiyu Tasmin Nuhava Upashama Shila Paramashaya Sakala Jiva Nakaya Bhavasya Bhagavato Vasudevasya Pitanam Shanabhutasya Srimad Charana Ravinda Vilata Smarana Vikalita Parama Bhakti Yoganu Bhavina Paribhavatanta Hridaya Digate Bhagavati Savasham Bhutanam Atma Bhute Pratyagatmanya Pratyagatmanyeva Tmanas Tatvat Nyam Abhisheshana Samiyu Tasmin Nuhava Upashama Shila Paramashaya Sakala Jiva Nikaya Vasasya Bhagavato Vasudevasya Vitanam Sharana Bhutasya Srimad Charana Ravinda Vidata Smanana Vikarata Pranama Bhakti Yoganu Bhavina Paribhavitantar Hridaya Dikate Bhagavati Savisham Bhutanam Atma Bhute Pratyagatman Bhagavati Savisham Bhutanam Atma Bhute Pratyak Atmani Atmanas Tadatmyam Abhisheshana Samiyu. You want me to go through?
Can we make it larger?
Yeah, the mind space is different on the screen from what you're reading.
No, I'm just stopping so that we can, so it's not like, as if it's not going to end.
The mind space is different on the mobile phone, it's different on there, and you're reading it different. Right?
Yeah, I'm just breaking it up.
Okay.
So whatever, it's just to have the endeavor, it's the endeavor that counts.
Asmin Yudhava Upasham Shiva Paramashaya Shakala Jiva Nikla Shashya Parvata Vasudevasya Bhutanam Sharanam Bhutasya Shrimachara Chara Vrinda Vrata Samarana Kalita Parama Bhakti Yoginu
Smarana Vigalita Paramabhakti Yoganu
Bhavana Parikri Vikranta Vidya Bhate Bhagavati Sham Bhutana Atma Bhute Pratya Atmani Evata Manas Tada Nyam Avisheshina Shamya
How do you
Tasman Ruhava Upashama Shila Paramahasaya Shakala Diva Nikaya Vasasya Bhagavato Vasudevasya Vitanam Sharana Tasya Srimad Charanara Vrinda Virata Smarana Vigalita Parama Bhakti Yoganu Bhavena Parivavitantor Hridaya Digate Bhagavate Sarvasham Bhutanam Atma Bhute Pratyag Amani Idvamanas Tadatnyam Avisheshena Samiyu
Tasmin Uhava Upashana Shila Paramashayam Sakala Jivan Kaya Vasasyam Bhagavato Vasudevasya Vitanam Sharana Uttasya Srimad Sharana Virata Smarana Vigalita Paramabhakti Yoganu Bhagavati Sarvasham Bhutana Bhavute Satya Atmani Vatmana Sakala Niyam Avisheshya Sadhu
Would you like to
Okay. Tasminu Hava Upashama Shila Paramashaya Sakala Jiva Nikaya Vasasya Bhagavato Vasudevasya Vitanam Sharana Uttasya Srimad Charanara Vindavirata Smarana Vigalita Parama Bhakti Yoganu Bhavena Paribhavitanta Hridaya Digate Bhagavati Sarvesham Bhutanam Atma Bhute Pratyag Atmani Evatmanas Tadatmyam Avisheshena Samiyu
Shall I take a go? Keep noticing them. None of this.
Tasmin Bhava Upasha, Shiva Paramam Shiva, Sakala Jiva, Nikaya Sasya, Bhagavato, Vitanam Sharana Bhutasya, Srimashcharana Vrinda Smarana Vikanta Paramabhakti Yoganupavina, Hari Bhavi Santa Chitaya Srikate Bhavati, Saurasham Bhutanam Amrite Pratyagat, Vigatmanastakatyam Avisheshana Samyam,
Thank you very much. Krishna sees the endeavor, and going through all this is quite very purifying. So I'm sure the Lord will be pleased. Please repeat, Tasmin, in that Paramahamsa ashram. Certainly. How? So celebrated. Va, indeed. Upasana Shila, in the renounced order of life. Paramarishaya, the great sages. Sakala, or Jiva, of living entities. Nikaya, in total. Ambasasya, his residence. Bhagavata, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudevasya, Lord Vasudeva. Vitana, of those afraid of material existence. Sharanabhutasya, the one who is the shelter, the only shelter. Srimad, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Charana Aravinda, the lotus feet. Avirata, constantly. Smarana, remembering. Avigalita, completely uncontaminated. Parama, supreme. Bhakti Yoga, of mystic devotional service. Anubhavena, by the prowess. Paribhavata, purified. Antar, within. Hridaya, the heart. Adigate, perceived. Bhagavati, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Salvation of all. Bhutanam, living entities. Atma Bhute, situated within the body. Pratyak, directly. Atmani, with the Supreme Supersoul. Eva, certainly. Atmana, of the self. Tadatmya, qualitatively. So qualitative, equality. Avisheshena, without differences. Samiyu, realized. Translation, Purport by Ki Jai. Thus situated in the renounced order from the beginning of their lives, all three of them completely controlled the activities of their senses and thus became great saints. They concentrated their minds always upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the resting place of the totality of living entities and who is therefore celebrated as Vasudeva. Lord Vasudeva is the only shelter of those who are actually afraid of material existence. By constantly thinking of his lotus feet, these three sons of Maharaj Priyabrat became advanced in pure devotional service. By the prowess of their devotional service, they could directly perceive the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart as the Supersoul, and realize that there was qualitatively no difference between themselves and him. Purport. The Paramahamsa stage is the topmost position in renounced life. In sannyas, the renounced order, there are 4 stages: Kutichak, Bahudak, Parivajikacharya, and Paramahamsa. According to the Vedic system, when one accepts the renounced order, he stays outside his village in a cottage, and his necessities, especially his food, are supplied from home. This is called the Kutichak stage. When a sannyasi advances further, he no longer accepts anything from home. Instead, he collects his necessities, especially his food, from many places. This system is called Madhukari, which literally means the profession of the bumblebees. As bumblebees collect honey from many flowers, a little from each, so a sannyasi should beg from door to door, but not accept very much food from any particular house. He should collect a little bit from every house. This is called the Bahudak stage. When a sannyasi is still more experienced, he travels all over the world to preach the glories of Lord Vasudeva. He is then known as Parivajikacharya. The sannyasi reaches the Paramahamsa stage when he finishes his preaching work and sits down in one place strictly for the sake of advancing in spiritual life. An actual Paramahamsa is one who completely controls his senses and engages in the unalloyed service of the Lord. So this goes on a bit more, so please listen carefully. I might test you, give you a test afterwards. Prabhupada's going through the renounced order of life, how there's 4 stages: Kutichak, Bahudak, Parivajikacharya, and Paramahamsa, and where he's slowly cutting his ties off from home, just receiving food, then not receiving food from home, but instead collects from many places, and going door to door. Then he travels the world as the Parivajikacharya, and the Paramahamsa stage, when he finishes his teaching work and sits down in one place strictly for the sake of advancing in spiritual life. Actually, a Paramahamsa is one who completely controls its senses and engages in the unalloyed service of the Lord. Therefore, all 3 of these sons of Priyavrata, namely Kavi, Mahavira, and Samana, were situated in the Paramahamsa stage from the very beginning. Their senses could not disturb them, for their senses were completely engaged in serving the Lord. Therefore, the 3 brothers are described in this verse as Upashama Shila. Upashama means completely subdued. Because they completely subdued their senses, they are understood to have been great sages and saints. After subduing their senses, the 3 brothers concentrated their minds upon the lotus feet of Vasudeva, Lord Krishna. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Vasudeva Samaviti. The lotus feet of Vasudeva are everything. Lord Vasudeva is the reservoir of all living entities. When this cosmic manifestation is dissolved, all living entities enter the supreme body of the Lord, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, who emerges within the body of Mahavishnu. Both of these Vishnu tattvas are Vasudeva tattvas, and therefore the great sages Kavi, Mahavira, and Samana concentrated always upon the lotus feet of Lord Vasudeva, Krishna. In this way, they could understand that the supersoul within the heart is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they could recognize their identity with Him. The complete description of this realization is that simply by discharging the unavoided form of devotional service, one can realize his self completely. The Paramabhakti Yoga mentioned in this verse means that a living entity, by dint of unalloyed devotional service, has no other interest than the service of the Lord, as described in Bhagavad Gita, Vasudeva Saramiti. By Parama Bhakti Yoga, by elevating oneself to the highest platform of loving service, one can automatically be relieved from the bodily concept of life and see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. As confirmed in Brahma Samhita, Pramanjana Trilita Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadaiva Prayeshu Vilokayanti Shama Sundaram Vichintya Gunam Swarupam Govindamali Purisham Tanaham Pujamami. An advanced devotee who is known as a sat or saint can always see within his heart the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, Krishna. Krishna, Shamasundara, expands himself by his plenary portion, and thus a devotee can always see him within his heart. Om Agyanita Manantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksharam Gunitam Jivantas Nishikima Akantaram Jivanshalam Pavanam Take with them Yad Kripataram Vande Shri Guru Tamatana. Bhakti Vishjan Kripa Sindhu Bhiyavija Pratitanam Pavamadi Vaishnavi Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhara Srila Sadigaura Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare. So Prabhupada is describing here it's sannyas and subduing one's senses in the unalloyed service of the Lord, who the sons of Prabhupada were focusing on, the object of their meditation, and how this freed them from completely from the bodily concept of life. So what's the names of the sons of Maharaj Prabhupada? What's the name of their names? It's okay. You can give them a clue if you want. It's simple because sometimes we can go through the Bhagavatam and there's questions that are asked that sometimes have been already answered and that we've already read. So it means that we should really kind of study it more thoroughly. Mahavira and Kavi, Mahavira and Savana. Okay. And what are the 4 stages of sannyas?
Bahudaka.
Yeah.
Paramahamsa. That was. Paravragakachaya.
Paravragakachaya.
3. Preliminary 1.
Kuti Chak. And so does anyone remember what each one means?
Yeah, the first one, he stays at home, outside of the village, and accepts food from home. The second one is He begs from door to door, and only a little from each door, not too much from one place. And then the third one is he leaves home as Parivrakachar. He leaves home and to preach around the world. And then the last one is he settles down in one place to go deeper into Krishna consciousness and spread it that way.
Focusing on his own spiritual life.
Yeah.
And unalloyed service to the Lord. So the sons of Priyavrata attained to the stage, the topmost stage immediately. And who's the object of their worship, of their meditation, or of service? Who's the Vasudeva? Any, can you be more specific? Oh yes, well, they the lotus feet of Vasudeva. Prabhupada goes on to describe how Lord Vasudeva is the reservoir for all living beings. Anyway, so this is showing us how someone in that ashram focuses their senses on the Lord and focuses on engaging their senses in the service of the Lord. And in this way, they were a disturbance to them. In this, when one is totally absorbed, then one finds oneself fully satisfied. But if one doesn't find oneself fully satisfied, then maybe that ashram is not the correct one for them. So there's the other three, which are the other three ashrams: Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha. So there's Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. So when they're ready for this stage and completely subdued their senses and became totally absorbed in serving the Lord as the objective of their meditation, and they could see the meeting face to face within their heart, and knew that they were qualitatively one with Him. So so many people have been forced to stay at home and have a taste of sannyas in this lockdown. Even they've had to sometimes beg for their food from the government and so many welfare activities and community projects have been set up to facilitate those in need. And see how some people were just begging to go back to work, as it said in another class, how to stay at home was too much for them. Their senses were too disturbed and could be subdued, so they had to get out and engage in an activity that was more according to their propensity. We've been fortunate that we're locked down in a temple, in a community where there's many activities to be engaged in, and that they're, more importantly, that our focus is in pleasing Krishna with our activities. In this way, we're employing ourselves, our senses, in sadhana bhakti, in the service of the Lord, so that we can one day too come to the stage where our service is unalloyed. So Prabhupada gave his formula of chanting 60 rounds every day, following 4 regulative principles, and having association with devotees in this international society of Krishna consciousness to assist devotees to maintain a strong practice of these devotional principles. And in this way, gradually progress in our spiritual life. So it seems very simple, but it can be quite a challenge. Prabhupada said to make one devotee cost me pints of blood has to be shed, because we're so conditioned, and so many sacrifices have to be made to maybe inconvenience, because we have our own conditioning as well, and we have our likes and dislikes, and so sometimes we have to put them aside to encourage, to keep ourselves enthused and to enthuse others by our example or by words or yes. So So in this way, we have to be very cautious of how the senses are engaged or what we expose them to, so that we can keep them in the scope, in the field of devotional service. In this day and age, there's so many distractions, and the weapons of distraction. And this is how powers that be can keep the population subdued and forgetful of their purpose, the purpose of their human form of life. And provide other means of engagement which degrade them. So this is due to lack of knowledge of how we're selling ourselves short from being eternally completely full of bliss and perfect knowledge, spiritual living entity who has a loving relationship with the Supreme, the controller, the most famous, the most beautiful, the most strong, the most renounced, the most knowledgeable, everything we could wish for in a person, but then as our best friend, but we're completely forgetful of him and settle for broken glass, the cheap thrills of the material world. So when one understands this, then one can engage wholeheartedly in one's devotional service. So it's a matter of understanding the value of what we've been given, how short our life is to take advantage of it. Because who knows when we will leave this body, and so every moment is precious. But it's the influence of the material energy to make us forgetful of this. That's make us forgetful, so that we think we've got, we can waste time here, space out there, not take things very seriously. But what's happening is that we're coming one day, each day is bringing us closer to death. So in this way, association is very important to help us achieve that. Association of devotees who are enthusiastic, who are very serious, who are focused, who inspire enthusiasm in us to really go forward in our Krishna consciousness. So, for us to try and be that person ourselves, so that we can be good association for others. And Prabhupada's graced us with so many examples in his writings, in his translations of the ancient Vedic texts, so that we can take advantage and share this knowledge and make it the subject of our conversation, try and take notes, remember the points and discuss them. And in this way, we'll find ourselves very, and this is a source of our satisfaction and bliss. As it says in one of the seed verses of the Bhagavad Gita, 10:9. Madchita madgata prana bodhyanta parasparam katyanchas chamam nityam tushyanticham ramanticham. Thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. So it'd be good to, like when we hear something, we listen to lectures and or see our seminars are so much online. We're reading from what we read. If we find something that we find very enthusing, we can share it with others, and in this way converse about Krishna, and some enlightenment will be there, because Krishna is he's there when we discuss him, when we chant his name, hear about him. This brings about remembrance, and also a deeper understanding of who Krishna is. When we speak about it, we're putting more light on that understanding. The result of having that understanding is, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 4:9. Does anyone know that verse? 4:9. Janma karma chame divyam evam yod vatitantra tatvaha jatyatva deham punajanma 90 months atisojana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So it's important to us for us to know the evils of birth, death, old age, and disease, to want to go back to that eternal abode and re-established in our eternal, blissful, full of knowledge self. And it's good if we remind each other of that to take everything very seriously. Because if we heard that, say, that, for example, the Queen was coming, then we'd have to be on our tiptoes to make sure everything was nice and clean, presentable, and like that. So there'd be a kind of buzz that the Queen's coming, the Queen's coming. So Krishna's coming. When we engage in this devotional service, it means that Krishna is coming. He's coming in our hearts. He's going to be there for us when at the time of death. So to take everything very seriously, that everything we do, so that we can be fully give full due respect to all service in a proper service attitude, under the guidance of having been guided by the spiritual master. And this is what we do when we're repeating the words of the spiritual master to each other, when we discuss these different points, because these are all Prabhupada's words. We're all his Siksha disciples. And the ones and to take advantage of those who were directly in his association when he was on the planet, at least, and so that we can, as much as possible, have that wealth that we can pass on to other generations, pass down to other generations also. Any questions or comments at this point?
Yeah, when you say we should take everything very seriously, is there a cutting off point where taking things too seriously just becomes dull?
Well, if you remember what we're doing, why we're doing it, and who we're doing it for, it's just like when we chant Hare Krishna. It's not that every time we chant that we get shivers down our spine, or goose pimples or whatever, get some inspiration. Krishna sometimes can withhold that to see how surrendered we are when we continue, even if we're not getting the bliss, sort of thing, so-called bliss. So it's but when we continue with faith, Krishna will give us inspiration every now and again that will inspire us. He knows what inspires us. So from time to time, he'll give us some inspiration, whether it's some direct association with the spiritual master, or it can come in the form of sweet born, or it can come in the form of chastisement, because sometimes Christians want to give us something, but we're holding on to attachments, we're holding on to something that's getting in the way. So to help us let go of what we're kind of keeping a grip on can be sometimes a very kind of so-called heavy situation we have to go through. But at the other side of it, we see how we've been relieved of something, so that we can be more peaceful, more loving, more respectful, so that the qualities that are in us of a devotee can be become fully manifest. Does that answer? And so in times when things may seem a bit dull, we have to we're doing a particular service maybe every day, and but then we can, like in the spiritual world, everything is perfect and more perfect. So with the service we're giving, we can, if we're applying ourselves to do it the best we can, then this is enlivening because Krishna in the heart is pleased by that. It's not that we by our endeavor we become happy. It's not that like in the materialist, he engages in the activities that give his senses satisfaction, and then he's happy until it wears off and he's looking for something else. Whereas with the devotee, his happiness comes from pleasing Krishna, and then Krishna in the heart is pleased, and so therefore he's naturally happy. So Krishna is not an ingrat at all. He sees everything, every single thing we do, even if nobody else sees it. That little detail he sees, and if we're attentive to that, then he's so pleased by that. So in maybe physical activity, we're attentive to dealings with other devotees, the details that they're attentive to controlling our thoughts, so that we can think the right thing, so that we do the right thing. Is that okay? So we should never think that we're alone, that Krishna is always there with us. So, and if we're conscious of that we're conscious of Krishna, this is what Krishna consciousness is all about. To remember him and never forget him. The easiest way is chanting Hare Krishna, but also it says in the Nectar Devotion to be always thinking of ways of how to please him. So if that's our meditation, then we're sure to be successful, because Krishna will give us so many gifts of high understanding, of ability, and so on. Because all these things come from Krishna. Then Krishna is the source. So when we please Krishna, we become decorated with all these things. So as we see with devotees who have their long practice, just being in their association is so pacifying, so satisfying. They only speak about Krishna, but we come out really enthused. So if we can try and be like a guru for each other, and not in a kind of authoritative way, but in a way of sharing, and because this is all the guru is trying to do, is trying to share Krishna consciousness, trying to share his instructions. So in the hope that we'll take it and make it our life and soul, as Srila Prabhupada did. So I'm going to stop there. So thank you for your attention. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki. Shri Shikodi Tanabai Prashashi ki. Vaishnav Seva Vaishnav Sangha ki. Samavaita Bhakta Vrinda ki. Nitai Gaur Premanandi.